Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, guys, to my podcast again, Generations Connects, where each episode features individuals from different age groups, backgrounds, and walks of life. Today with me, I have Ifrah, also known as Hoy Therapy. I'm your host, Fartoon. Ifrah, welcome to our podcast today.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Fartoon, for having me. Very happy to be here.
It's an honor. So today I wanted us to discuss about how do we survive narcissists. I mean, a lot of people have been dealing with this problem. And I think a lot of questions that people ask nowadays is, after finding out that you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, whether it's someone from your family or someone who you are in a relationship with, after coming to that realization, how do you move on?
So narcissistic abuse is really it's a very jarring type of abuse that affects the person and their mind and their mental health, and a lot of times their identity, even depending on how long the person was being abused for. So, because what happens is it's a lot of psychological abuse that actually makes you start questioning yourself and questioning your own mind. And, you know, there's that term gaslighting that a lot of us hear. And, you know, that's what they do. They do a lot of gaslighting on the person. And so the person will actually start questioning themselves and their own reality. And so it takes time to heal from that. And I think one of the worst things that someone can do, like if they were in a narcissistic relationship, is jump into another relationship, because you really have to have healed and understand, like, what happened to me and what part did I play in it? Because and I feel like that's so important, because the only thing that we have control over as human beings is our own behavior and our own selves. So we have to take responsibility for the people that we're choosing to enter our lives, you know? So there's a certain type of personal responsibility we need to take when we're assessing like the whole situation and what happened. And so what is it in me that's allowed this to happen to me? And, you know, am I choosing these people? Are they choosing me? Like, what is it that I'm doing that's attracting these type of people to my life? So a lot of, you know, self-reflection is needed.
What about someone who has been raised by, you know, a narcissist? Not everyone can choose that type, you know. Sometimes you find yourself being raised by the narcissist. Sometimes you find yourself choosing narcissistic friends, and maybe these are friends from childhood. You can't really choose them. So at what point does someone say, okay, this has happened, how do I move on? Because not everyone has the ability to choose, you know?
I think if it's parents, it's very tricky. I think that's the most difficult thing as Muslims to navigate, because, you know, parents have so much haq on us. They have the rights of the parents are so powerful and they're so strong as Muslims. And so we know that as Muslims, we cannot cut our parents off. We can't, you know, we have to be good to them. And so there's a balance there, depending on how this is affecting you, that each individual person has to assess, right? Because this is for example, you know, there's a lot of things that Allah has ordered us to do, but if you're unable to do it because of health reasons, then you're exempt, right? For example, like fasting in the month of Ramadan is wajib for us. Um, but if you're unable to fast, there's a way to, pay to feed people, right? So that you can. So Islam is not a religion that requires us to sacrifice our health, right? Because
Yes.
Allah sees you. Allah knows what's in your heart. Allah knows what you're dealing with. So for me, I tell people, it's something very personal between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and only you know how you feel, and only you know, and you and Allah know how you feel and, what you're dealing with. So, um, there's, so every situation is very, very unique and very different. There's people who are struggling very severely with their mental health, and and they have very, very problematic parents. And so I cannot advise that person the same way that I advise someone who, for example, has a problematic parent, but can be patient and can find ways to deal with it and, have sabr, and inshallah, Allah will give you ajr for this. And, let's find out ways and tactics to minimize the abuse for you. And let's find strategies for you to also like be able to handle these things more and be stronger mentally. So I can't, like, every person is very different, and every person's capacity is different. So, um, you know, if something is harming you to the point where you can't handle something, like, you have to save yourself, you have to save your mind, you have to save. So the health of the human being is of the utmost importance, in my view, whether it's
I
your
think it's
physical health, your mental health. Yeah.
You're right. The reality is, we're supposed to love our parents no matter what, and we have to respect them. So, um, when it comes to this narcissistic view of saying that this person is in that kind of situation, it's not easy, and most of the time, narcissism is something that is a mental disorder. So it has to be diagnosed by a professional. And lately, it's just become a very normal thing that, it's everyone just talks about being, in a narcissistic relationship. When we look at narcissism in itself, it's a mental disorder, and not everyone actually gets to go to a psychologist or psychiatrist and gets diagnosed. I don't think personally, I've never met someone who's been diagnosed with narcissistic disorder. For me personally, I think we've always been using this word because it's something that uh, has been really described lately. So, and it's true that in terms of parents and that relationship between a parent and a child, it's very tricky, and it's not something that someone can say, oh, this is how you have to do. I mean, obviously we cannot cut ties with our parents. We have to respect them. So I think the best way is to have like coping strategies. What do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, Allah didn't say that you have to love your parents, but Allah said that you have to respect your parents and you have to be good to them, right? Um, Love is something that comes from the heart, and it's not something that you have control over sometimes. And so, um, and I feel like narcissistic personality disorder, yes, you're right. It's a diagnosed disorder. And narcissism in general, it's on a spectrum, kind of like autism. So it's some people have more traits and stronger traits, and some people have less, but we all have characteristics of narcissism. And there's healthy narcissism, which we all need, And then there's when it gets too far, it gets too much. And people all have different levels, but you're right. It's become a trendy word that people kind of throw around, and diagnose everybody with it, which is incorrect. Not everybody is a narcissist. A narcissist is a term of like someone who has narcissistic personality disorder. But someone can have very strong traits of narcissism. Yeah, so I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah. It's true. It's not something that is easily, we can say it's a clear-cut thing. You talked about gaslighting. Um, how does someone understand that they are in that kind of, a situation of being gaslit?
I think one of the most important things that someone could look for, um, to see if they're being abused by someone psychologically, is confusion. If you're confused a lot of times by whenever you're around someone, you start questioning yourself. You start having to write down things because someone tells you, no, that didn't actually happen. And you know it happened. And then you start questioning yourself and you're like, oh, am I crazy? Did that happen or did that not happen? I thought it did happen because in your mind, you can't imagine someone making stuff up. It doesn't even cross your mind. And so people are so quick to actually doubt themselves more than doubt other people. And you have to really mentally write something down. Yes, you can make a mistake once or twice, but can you really be wrong all the time? Can everything really be your fault all the time? Can you be the one who misremembered something all the time? And so when you see a pattern consistently happening where someone is saying, I never said that. I never did that. You're just making that up. Accusing you of things just out of the blue that you never did, like, playing mental mind games of trying to get you angry or rile you up or, push your buttons so you react. Like these are the things that narcissists do to their victims. Like they love a reaction, right? They love to make you angry. And you don't realize that this is happening, that you're just kind of like this toy that they're playing with, you know? And so if you find yourself exploding a lot around this person, just getting mad and like, why does this person constantly, they'll just say something and you'll get so mad and you're like, why does this always happen when I'm around them? So just pay attention to your feelings and how you feel around specific people.
There's also there's something that I had when someone is no longer in under the control of a narcissist. Like once you are out of that situation, there's ways that they react. They begin smearing your character, and they start saying bad things about you, and they try to isolate you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's not easy to get away from a narcissist, but it's definitely worth it. So the person has to be ready. It is a fight. It's gonna be a fight. It's gonna be like they call the smear campaign, where there's all this terminology that's used, like flying monkeys, and that they used in the narcissistic world, um, and try to, tarnish your name, tarnish your character. And these are the things that they use because this is what they want. They want to control the narrative. But it doesn't matter. You can just, I would say, the truth, you know, and Allah knows the truth. And that's all that's important, you know, is when you figure out that this person is a narcissist and you start slowly getting away from them, the peace that you find in your life after that is definitely worth it. You don't need to engage in their drama. I would say just be silent, just be silent. There's something called the gray rock method, which means no reaction. Um, which means this person is looking to make you mad, is looking for a reaction, is looking for you to defend yourself and be defensive. And you just you just act like a gray rock and you have nothing to say, no reaction. And um eventually they will look for their supply somewhere else, like because the narcissist really feeds on this negative energy. These games they play, it's the energy. That's their energy. That's where they get their happiness from. And when you don't give it to them, they'll move on to their next victim, unfortunately.
I also heard that apparently this whole thing, this reaction is their way of being afraid of being exposed as a narcissist. It's like they are so paranoid that they're going to lose that control, and it's their way of regaining control. Like somehow, I think it's just kind of when we talk about it right now, even after being in that situation of being in that way, like in a relationship with someone who is narcissistic, a lot of things you hear, like when we told that okay, they'll start smearing your name, they'll start saying this, they'll start doing this. When it's happening in real time, it's insane. Like all of these things you read about them, and you hear people talk about them, and when you're told okay, they're afraid of being exposed, what does that mean? Like if a narcissist is afraid of exposure, what are they trying to hide? Like it's really insane.
I mean, the narcissist, you have to understand, like, is like broken in a way from childhood, right? So this started to happen to them in childhood, and they probably went through some type of abuse where they formed like another personality, or another not personality, but another like self kind of thing. So they are they're very predictable. Once you understand the narcissist is a narcissist and you see them as that and you watch their behavior, they're very, very predictable. And you realize, oh, they're not as strong and powerful as as you once thought that they are, because um they're just like a little child, to be honest with you, that is playing all these games, and they don't have any real like emotional depth to them. Um you can predict their every move. You can predict like when you do something how they're going to react, and it's actually very easy to manipulate them and do the gray rock method and all these things. So yeah, narcissists are just they can cause a lot of damage to people when you don't recognize what they are, when you don't know. But once you learn about narcissists and you understand, it's like you can't unlearn it. You're just looking out for it, hopefully.
It's true. Like I also heard the narcissists are basically people who are just stuck as you know as like they're stuck in that mentality or that kid mentality. I think I was listening to this uh lecture by this world-renowned physicist, or is he? I think he's a psychiatrist or psychologist, Dr. Gab Mate, and he mentioned that narcissism is something that begins in childhood. You know how children are always like me, 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 me. So that's the moment that narcissistic uh, personality starts, it begins from childhood. But as you grow up, you have to be exposed to being with other children, with other people, and the child begins to realize, okay, not everything is about me. There are other people, and I need to be considerate of their feelings, what they need.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they say that narcissism is created by, traumatic events in childhood, but a lot of like overindulging the child for like superficial reasons, but then being very harsh with them. So I don't think it's really something that's like clear cut, but it's like putting them on a pedestal and then neglecting them also at the same time, right? So if you can imagine, like, let's say a child who plays sports, right? And he's praised for his sports and he has to do well. And he's given a lot of love and attention from those sports activities because it reflects very well on the family. But when he doesn't do well, he's ridiculed and he's called, horrible names and he's, punished and he's neglected in other ways emotionally. He's neglected at home, like no one pays attention to him. But when he does he wins a game, he's praised and he's given gifts and, you know, so this child learns some really, really unhealthy behaviors from you know, this praise and then also the neglect, the other neglect. So it creates, you know, this very dysfunctional way of thinking. Um, and they've gone through a lot of pain themselves, and that's why they develop this other, thing that it's like a coping mechanism. So it's very, very interesting.
So do you think there comes a moment when someone, let's say, who's been diagnosed with that disorder, because as we've talked about, it has to be a mentally diagnosed disorder, as much as we throw the name around. Is there a point where someone is diagnosed with this disorder and they seek help, and will they eventually get to a point where they're able to look back and reflect and say, oh, I shouldn't have done this, and become more empathetic to other people?
So I learned about narcissism through Dr. Ramani. I don't know if you've seen her. Do you know who
I
that is?
think
She's
I
a
think I've
psychologist.
seen, yeah, but I don't think I've listened to her lectures quite well.
Okay. So she's a professor at UCLA and she's a psychologist as well. And she's like really one of the biggest experts are not on narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder. And, you know, all of the research and the experts say that narcissists or people with personality disorders in general don't change. It's not something that they can get cured from, right? And there's no medication for this except you go to therapy and you do like CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. And what can happen there is I think if a narcissist is willing to change, they might be able to get a little better in their abuse because they have something that they want from it. So this is looking at from the Western lens, right? From what the research says, is that narcissists can't really change. All you can do is change yourself and protect yourself from these people. Even if they do change, the change is very small, right? I
Yeah.
I feel like from an Islamic perspective, you know, is this person like has the pen been lifted from them or has it not been lifted? Like that's the question, right? Like when the pen has been lifted from you, that means that you're mentally incapable of like understanding things, right? You're actually insane. I don't think the narcissist is insane, right?
Yeah.
I don't think the pen has been lifted from this person, right? So what does that mean? Like if if you still have to pray your prayers, if you still have to be a good person, if you still have to, because you still have control over your mind, control over your faculties, this means that this is a choice, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not create you as a human being, give you choice, and the pen has not been lifted from you because you can reason, but then at the same time, you've been stamped and said you're so bad that you don't know what you're doing and that you need to get a pass. I don't think these people get a pass to say they're sick and they're so ill that they don't know what they're doing. There are people who are mentally ill who are considered like psychotic, right? Where they have a break in reality and their reality is not the reality that we live. So they see things, they're in a different world. And those people, I think the pen has been lifted from them many times because they're not functional. A narcissist can be very functional. So in my opinion, I don't think that the pen is lifted from them. So what does that mean? That means that they have free will to choose to be bad or to be good. And they're choosing to do this evil. And so I think they can choose to not do this. If they fear Allah, they can choose. That's my opinion. But I believe that like the first narcissist was Shaitan, because if you look at the characteristics and the symptoms of narcissism, the grandiosity of it, the arrogance, and how Shaitan was, and he didn't want to bow to Adam, he didn't want to listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how, so, Shaitan has said he's going to take people, right, to hellfire with him. And that's his job on earth. And I believe that like narcissism is, this has a lot to do with this evilness of Shaitan, and it's a choice, you know?
That is scary. That is very scary. Like, knowing that by the end of the day, this person understands what they're doing and still continues that, because you're right. If the pen hasn't been lifted, there's so many ways that you can change. You can choose to change. You can, even if I think somehow, like most people, when they talk about narcissists, it's like, oh, they don't have any like feelings, like they don't feel any empathy. So I think in some ways, if you want to say, I want to change, it has to be more spiritual than than just seeking, professional help, because there's so many things that you can do to actually get you on the right track, like praying more, giving out sadaqah, trying to like reflect, do self-reflection. And I think somehow that is something that can actually help the narcissistic person. What do you
Definitely.
think of that?
Definitely. Definitely. Because not everyone is motivated by empathy, right? Not everyone is motivated by just human nature of being a good person. No, that's not everybody. Some people are motivated by punishments. There's people out here who are not committing murder because they're a good human being and they could never kill somebody. But there's other people who are not committing murder because they don't want to go to jail, not because they're a good person. They could easily kill somebody and be fine and sleep well at night. But the only reason they're not doing that is because of the punishment that they're going to get. So people are different. And when you look at behavior, it doesn't have to come from a place of wanting to do it. It can come from a place of doing it because it's the right thing to do, doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and you are rewarded more when something is a struggle for you. You know, when someone wants to pray their 5 prayers and they're happy to do it, right? And then there's another person who forces themselves to go make wudu, who forces themselves to go pray. They're doing it because they don't want to go to hellfire. They're doing it for the sake of Allah, right? And so Allah is going to, you know, give you get more ajr by doing that and fighting with your nafs and fighting with your evil inclinations when the other person didn't have to fight and it was just natural, you actually get more ajr for it, you know? So this is this is just an imtihan that people have to pass. So um yeah.
I think in some ways that's true. It's not like we really don't understand what this what a person who suffers from narcissistic disorder is going through. Sometimes um, they don't have they lack that compassion, and I don't think it's easy to be someone who is a shell of a human being, like not having any feelings or any remorse. That has to be very lonely. So it's true. So I think it's in some way when you try to fight against that, when you try to ask God for help, when you try to have that self-awareness, it is much harder. And you're right, you get more ajr on that. So there's
Yeah.
another thing.
And I think also that people are really stuck on the word narcissism or NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. And so when they understand that these people exist, they really try to diagnose all the people around them to see, they start looking for the narcissist, and I think I've been reading about narcissism for like almost 10 years. And I think when I first learned about it and understood, I was doing the same thing. And I was like, oh, is she a narcissist? Is he a narcissist? And I realized it doesn't matter if the person is a narcissist or what the label is. I think that people need to focus on problematic behavior, right? They need to focus on, is this a person that's displaying behavior that's problematic to you? That's it. You don't have to name it anything. It doesn't have to be this person is borderline, this person is narcissist, this person is, you know, bipolar, this person is, all these names doesn't really matter for you. All that matters is like, is this person causing you harm? Is this person not respecting your boundaries? Is this person causing you to question yourself constantly? You know, all these negative things. So that's what you need to focus on is there problematic behavior here or not? Not on, the word or diagnosing or looking at symptoms. So
I think a lot of time when you talk about boundaries, like you just mentioned, the thing is a lot of people um, lack that uh, lack that awareness of having personal boundaries. Let's say when we look at people who are empathetic or people who actually just basically love helping people, sometimes you realize that these people don't have that boundary where they say, okay, this is not healthy for me. Let me just detach from this person because I have to think of myself. Some people don't understand that, and they end up putting themselves in situations that bring them more harm than good. In While they're trying to help someone, I think that is something that personally I've struggled with, and I'm really learning a lot more to have boundaries with people.
yeah, and I still struggle with that myself. I feel like it's a lifelong journey to be keeping, to to be making boundaries, to be making new boundaries, and I think one of the most important things to understand is that taking ownership of our life and not having a victim mentality where things are happening to us, right? I'm being abused. I married a narcissist. And then I married another narcissist. And then I married another narcissist. And then I have three best friends who are narcissists. And then my boss is a narcissist. And this person is a narcissist. I mean, you know, at what point do you take responsibility for the situations that you allow yourself to be put in? You know, because all you can control in life is our behavior, right? And so it requires is a lot of self-love. It requires a lot of self-reflection. It requires you constantly checking in with yourself and seeing, what do I feel right now? How am I feeling? And some people have never really asked themselves that question. They're so into running around doing things, one, two, three, accomplishing things, running around, that they don't take that time to sit down and actually feel their feelings, right? And feeling your feelings will allow you to know what even your feelings are, because sometimes we grew up in a state of confusion, and then we continue this state of confusion into adulthood where we don't even know what we're feeling. We don't even know what this friend of ours is making us feel because they're so nice and they're so, happy, and they're so, they want us to go out and do this with them and have fun. But we're not understanding, okay, how does this person actually make me feel? Do I feel calm? Do I feel, content? How do I feel around them? And so I feel like that's the first step in becoming a healthy person is honoring your feelings, honoring how people make you feel and making decisions on those feelings. Because if someone makes me feel uncomfortable, it doesn't mean that that person is a bad person. If I decide not to pursue a friendship with someone, it does not mean that that person is bad. It just means that that person is not right for me right now in the stage that I'm in. They could be a perfectly fine person, but we just don't click right now because for some reason the vibes that you're giving off are not for me, you know, in the stage that I'm in my life. So I think we have to understand and respect ourselves and respect our own feelings and understand that all you can control is your environment and who you allow in that environment. That's it.
I think a lot of times people are trying so hard to fit in that we actually forget we are individuals with our own unique feelings and our own unique way of thinking. So when you talk about choosing friends and not allowing yourself to be in a friendship that makes you uncomfortable, no matter how good the person is, I think a lot of times people find themselves in that situation simply because this is what is socially acceptable. Because if you end up being in your house, or you end up not talking to people just simply because you don't want to talk to people, you're immediately assumed as someone who is, you know, not normal, or probably just someone who is a bit detached from everyone else. So I think somehow, in some ways, a lot of times when we find ourselves having friends that we're not comfortable with, it's just simply because it's what's deemed normal. People are supposed to have friendships, people are supposed to connect with other people.
Absolutely. And I mean, the thing is, I think we are supposed to, as human beings, have a community, right? We should be connecting with people and we should not be isolating ourselves. That's not healthy. But I think also we, a friendship is something that's different. For me, it means something. So friendship is different than having acquaintances, right?
Definitely.
Or having like a community, right? Because there might be people in my community that I help, right? Who I support, and they might support me, but that doesn't make us friends necessarily, because as Muslims, right, we have a duty to each other, right? So if um even as Somalis, we're very, very we help each other a lot, right? So people can help each other, and it's a form of sadaqah, right? So I can help people that I don't even know, I can do things for people, but a friendship is someone who I allow into my very, very personal space, right? Who I allow around my children, who I allow in my home, who I allow myself to be vulnerable with, maybe that I share my problems with, right? That's completely different. And we have to have standards when it comes to that. You know, if you call a friend, someone that you just like go out to coffee with once in a while and you don't share anything with them, or, you know, there's, that's not what I call a friend. That's not what I'm talking about. So, but I'm talking about like because someone that you give your time and your energy to, that you feel a type of loyalty towards, because we don't choose our family, you know, whatever our family is, we have a duty towards them, you know. Um, حق بين أوليهن. Like in friendships ka, it's something that you choose, you know? And so we need to choose wisely. And we need to know that it doesn't matter if you grow up with somebody. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, you don't have to continue a friendship. You can continue, you can still say hello to the person. They could still be, it doesn't mean you have to cut them off and block them and all these things, and because you don't like them as a friend, but you can slowly distance yourself from them, and, say Assalamu alaikum, Eid Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem. How are you guys doing? Good. It doesn't mean that you cut them off. I mean, unless they're toxic people, but you can still say hi to people but not be friends with them. You know what I'm saying? And
I
that's
think
okay, and that's very healthy.
I think that's something that you begin to learn the older you become, because there's different moments in your life where you meet a lot of people. Sometimes you find yourself working with, a group of people for maybe a few years, and those people become closest to you because you're spending every moment of your day with them. So I think for me personally, it took me a while to actually differentiate the fact that I do have working relationship with some people, and it's supposed to just stay that way. And after all is said and done, because you can't necessarily just say, I do have a best friend, so I'm just going to, put all my problems or just take all my issues to that person, because it will not necessarily be fair. Most of the time, you find yourself when you're working with someone, this person will understand more of what you're going through or the kind of challenges you face at work. So there's a lot of differences when it comes to having friends, especially in different times of your life, in different aspects of your life. Because I do have a best friend as well. It's just most of the time I can go a long time without talking to her, and you're correct when you say that's the person that you introduce to in your personal life, as compared to having someone who you're working with, someone who you meet outside, someone who you help occasionally, compared to that. So I think it's true, but I think somehow it's something that I've really struggled with, to try and compartmentalize basically on how I'm supposed to connect with different people in different aspects of my life. Does that make sense?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And for me, it's taken me a long time to even figure that out. But um it's I and you're right. It's the older that you get, the more that you value peace, right? And it's the more that you honor who you really are inside. Because a lot of times we don't know. And so the notion that we can choose friends, the notion, it's interesting. Like me and you are learning it as we get older, but I've seen very young people who have better boundaries than us because they're growing up in an environment where that's normalized, right? So it's important to also raise our children in that way. Like my children um, are so healthy emotionally, much more than I was at their age. You know, they have a lot of boundaries, you know. Um, and I think it's because I've like instilled that in them from a young age. And so they came to it in their own in different stages in life and learned, but they have very big boundaries and they're okay being by themselves. Like, and it makes me so proud actually when I see them going out and doing something alone and being happy and content doing that because I'm like, wow, there's people in their 50s and their 60s who can't do anything alone, you know? And the fact that you're so young and you're able to do that and be actually happy is incredible, you know, because you free yourself from needing someone. Like if you want to go out to a restaurant, if you want to go to a movie, there's people that can't even fathom doing something by themselves. Like they feel like they're going to die. Like they can't believe that you would do something like that, you know? And it's like, it's very sad to me because it's like when you get to the level where you can actually, and it's not like promoting an isolated life or like a life where you don't talk to people and you're all by yourself. And no, it's not. But just that the fact that that you are able to do that once in a while, that you're able to enjoy yourself because we live in a different type of world now. We don't live in communities anymore, you know? Um, we don't live with so many extended family and cousins and, all the neighborhood people know each other. People are afraid of each other. People are scared of their neighbors. People don't talk to their neighbors. They don't even know them, you know? So we don't live in community anymore. We really live very isolated lives. So, you know, um, being able to enjoy your life alone and be like, oh, well, I wanted to go to this museum and let's say your friend canceled on you last minute. Are you going to not go, even though you really wanted to go and you got prepared? No, you should go by yourself and enjoy it, you know?
I think also part of it has to do with the generational uh, aspect because some of us, I think lately they have this thing where they say millennials have actually the people who have had the best life because we were born at a time when there was internet that was the internet was there, we had the TV, but it wasn't as much as it is right now. So
Mm,
we were able to have fun with our friends and we were able to watch TV, and life was a bit easier than it is as compared to the world right now. And I think, yeah, it's true that we somehow became more mentally aware. And right now, the children that are young, the Gen Zs or the Gen Alphas, are somehow more in tune with their mental health because they grew up in a time when we were always just like we were more mentally self-aware, and it's true. Like right now I do have my daughter, and she is most of the time she'll just tell me, "Oh, Hoy, you don't have to care what people think." Let's say if I'm taking a photo, if I'm taking a video, and she'll be like, "Oh, why do you care about what people think? Like you have to be happy with yourself." I don't think I would have ever thought of that when I was her age. So it's truly amazing, and
Yeah.
I think part of it is we have to be. Part of it is the fact that they have had the internet more, and they still are able to learn from it, not in the way that, you know, I think somehow we just, I don't know, man. It's amazing. It's truly amazing
Yeah.
because we think that the internet is a bad place. Sometimes it can be a good place.
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful because they're very well informed because of social media, because of Google, because of so many things that, we didn't have access to. So they have so much information, you know. So in a way they're very advanced in that way, you know. MashaAllah.
Well, that's truly something to be appreciative of. And oh my God, like I wanted us to discuss anxiety and depression, but I think we're almost running out of time. Um,
Yeah, I knew it was gonna take a while, the narcissism. It's a big topic.
definitely, definitely. Uh, I think what is the one advice that you would give people who are right now hoping to start their life? Because I think there is there's a lot of people that I've noticed nowadays who are becoming more self-aware and want to begin their new journey of, you know, being mentally healthy and away from this kind of uh, relationships. Like, what is one advice that you would give them?
Learn how to set boundaries and understand that boundaries has nothing to do with anyone else. It has to do with you. So when you're setting a boundary, you're not setting it for the other person to actually um, fulfill your boundary or meet your boundary, right? It's basically you're doing it because you're telling yourself, hey, this is my boundary. So for example, let's say I meet someone new, and I want to be friends with them. We're trying to kind of build a friendship. And I've noticed that this person is always late for any time that we're meeting. And they're like, let's say an hour or more late. And I end up waiting somewhere for them. And they're not respecting my time, right? So
Yes,
I I can create a boundary because it's really bothering me, right? And whether they want to fulfill that boundary or not, like it's not my problem. But for me, let's say I've decided, you know what? Um, I have a boundary, and if you are more than 20 minutes late, I'm gonna leave. And so I will tell them the boundary. I'll think about what I want my boundary to be because I'm sitting there and I'm angry that this person is always late, right? So it's that victim mentality. Am I going to just allow things to happen to me, or am I going to take action and of my life and my time and my emotions? So what I will do is I'll be like, okay, well, why am I angry? I'm just going to tell this person, hey, um, you're 30 minutes late, so I left. That's it. I don't have to tell them, hey, by the way, have a big conversation and be like, oh, you did this to me, so I'm gonna leave, and this is my boundary. They don't even need to know that you're making a boundary. This is something that's for yourself. You text them and say, oh, I see that you're running late. I gotta go, so I left. Um, and that's it. And they're gonna learn on their own oh, okay. If I'm late, she's going to end up leaving. She doesn't tolerate people being late. So they're going to get a message from you about your boundary because you took action and you created a boundary. And it's up to them whether they're going to continue the friendship and respect your boundary, or if they're going to say, okay, if I want to be friends with her, I actually have to be there the time that I said I'm going to be there. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So
So,
it's up to them if they're going to respect that and they're going to pursue the friendship and, or not, you know. And it's up to you, like how many times you're going to continue making a, appointment with them or whatever, or just be like, yeah, I'm busy or whatever. So it's it's not about, so I would say that. I would say start with boundaries, start with learning what boundaries are and slowly implementing them. The great thing about boundaries is no one has to know that you're doing this, and you can slowly implement it into your life. Um, Learning how to say, no, I don't think so. I don't think I want to do that without explanation to people that you feel like, and I'm not talking about like our parents or obviously like people close to us, but like, let's say, there's someone that's just very, very accustomed to you helping them with things, and maybe you're frustrated by it. Just learning to honor yourself and be like, not having to lie and make excuses. A lot of people lie all the time to get out of things, which you don't have to do. You know, you can actually create a boundary and, so I would say start there.
true. You make the boundaries and just, it's truly refreshing, by the way, once you have made a boundary for yourself and it frees you from being guilty. It's something that is very refreshing. I think we are almost approaching the end of our episode for today. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we just leave this in a very interesting uh, note? Because
No,
I feel like
it,
there's
thank
so much I want to talk about.
you. No, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was an honor to be invited. So thank you.
It's an honor to have you on this podcast, and inshallah, uh, hope to see you guys on the next episode. As always, this is Generations Connect, and today we've had the honor of having Ifrah, also known as Oil Therapy.
Thank you. Follow me
Until
on
next time,
TikTok.
yeah, definitely follow my amazing new friend, Oil Therapy, on TikTok. And inshallah, hope to see you guys, and hopefully, we'll have you on, inshallah, very soon.
Inshallah. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.